There's this little YouTube anime podcast. It's a bit obscure, you might not know it, called Garbage Flavor, hosted by Josh the Manga Lad, Gig United Kingdom, and a Primate. First off, check them out, they're really funny. Second, the reason why I'm mentioning them is because on one of the podcasts, the monkey mentioned an anecdote about a giant tortoise. And as I was in a call with Victoria, you might remember her name from the credits of the last video, we were catching up on life whilst she was teaching me the entire Japanese language in under an hour. I told her about said anecdote, and for those who don't know, long story short and quoting / paraphrasing Turidu, the reason that the giant tortoise wasn't properly classified by scientists for so long is because they were so delicious that no specimens ever made it back to Europe without being eaten on the voyage. According to accounts over centuries, the giant tortoise is by far the most edible creature man has ever encountered. Compare them to chicken, beef, mutton and butter, but only to say how much better the tortoise was. Oil made from tortoise fat was medically useful and tasted wonderful. Delicious liver, bone marrow, their eggs were the best anyone had ever eaten. Better still, they sucked up gallons of water and kept it in a special bladder, meaning that it was also a fountain of cool, perfectly drinkable water. I find this story fascinating, and it absolutely makes me want to eat an animal that is simply impossible to obtain now. My lovable vegetarian friend, however, was horrified. And so the conversation then led up to eating imaginary fantastical creatures, which prompted her to ask me, seriously? But they're so magical and beautiful, like, would you seriously eat a dragon?
レッドドラゴンを料理するのは長年の夢だったのだ。レッドドラゴンか。やはり王道にステーキか、それともハンバーグか。シャウシャウ。
Funny how watching my sister get eaten gives me the munchies.
What did he say?
Dungeonmeshi, also known as Deliciousindungeon, is perhaps one of the most perfect mangas I've ever had the pleasure of reading. I watched all the anime episodes that were available on Netflix and proceeded to gobble down, pun fully intended, the whole 97 chapters of the manga. I know, I'm getting ahead of myself. MrGoodSir, what is dungeonmeshi about? Well, I'm glad you asked, you beautiful viewer you. In this fantasy anime, we follow a group of adventurers after unsuccessfully attempting to slay a red dragon. They are forced to escape as it consumes Falin, one of the mages of the group. And feeling indebted to her for teleporting them to safety, her brother and leader of the guild, Laios, as well as guild members Chilchuk and Marsil, are determined to get back to the dungeon in time to save Falin before she's digested by the dragon. However, penniless and with their supplies left behind, they are now forced to venture in this arduous journey by feeding on the dungeon monsters for survival. Thankfully, they encounter Senshi, a dwarf with over 10 years of experience of cooking monsters and harvesting food in the dungeon, who agrees to join them in their quest. I've always heard great things of this manga, but it was always the case of a very loud, niche fanbase who constantly sang its praises. And then there was the rest of the world saying, yeah, people say it's good. and I was a big dum-dum member of that group. Stupid! That's until the anime was announced, I saw the trailer and thought, man, I do want to eat some weird stuff. The world of dungeonmeshi is vibrant, filled with all sorts of characters from different races and backgrounds, all of them attracted to the dungeon for one reason or another. The tale of this dungeon begins as such. Long ago, in a tiny village, the ground shook and the floor of the catacombs split. From there emerged a man, claiming to have ruled the Golden Country, which vanished 1,000 years ago.
The land that prospered, until a mad mage cast a spell that sunk it deep underground, trapping its subjects there. I shall bestow my kingdom to whomever defeats the mage.
Then the man turned to dust and blew away. The dungeon is an environment imbued with powerful magic and fantastical creatures, ranging from cute and close to harmless to life-threatening and even disturbing, with each level as you climb down getting more and more dangerous. But this environment is beautifully crafted. Unlike most run-of-the-mill animes with a fantasy setting, the dungeon in dungeonmeshi feels truly alive, with its monster's biology and ecosystem carefully thought out, not only as a way for our characters to know how to better defeat and prepare these creatures for consumption, but also to know how these live amongst themselves, their habits and their place in the food chain. Speaking of which, the top of the food chain is without a doubt my favorite character in this show, Senshi. Senshi is everything I want to be. Strong, respectful, caring for his party members, and above all, a master of the art of cooking. Now, we all know that food in anime puts real life to shame, but when Senshi goes "Kanseija" and presents you with whatever dish he has prepared, man, he puts Sanji and Soma to shame with stuff like this. I mean, look at it! I'd become this dwarf's wife if it meant eating like this every day. But what I truly love about Senshi, besides them thunderflies, is his genuine care and attention for the balance in the dungeon's ecosystem. As one of its longtime residents, he holds a strong belief in only taking what is needed, and giving back to the dungeon what it takes from it, which can make him frustrated when others do not do the same. And that makes me think that he wouldn't enjoy us tall men, humans in real life. For besides the giant tortoise, we are culprits in a few more accounts of the crime known as eating species nearly to death, or to straight up death. We used to eat woolly mammoths, you know. Can you imagine the rich, gamey flavor slow cooked over an open fire? Well, no, you can't. We missed the opportunity for a couple 800,000 years, and we can blame our ancestors for that. Granted, the harsh realities of the Ice Age definitely didn't help, but still, we're part of the problem. Passenger pigeons were also once numerous and apparently quite delicious. So much so that the Seneca people named it... I'm not sure if I should try saying this. Well, it meant big bread. Can you picture the delicate, slightly sweet taste of their meat, pan-seared with herbs and butter? Man, I could eat that. But our relentless hunting drove them to extinction as well, leaving poor Martha, the last of her kind, alone till her death in 1914. American bisons apparently tasted very lean and rich. However, the mass slaughter driven by European settlers and then Americans in the 19th century decimated bison populations. They're not actually extinct, but I just love the American way of thinking, yeehaw, let's get that meat, baby! Da 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 da. Oh right, this video is about anime, by the way. These examples of how human activity has led to the extinction of remarkable species, extinguishing not only their existence but also the unique flavors they once offered to our palates, gives me a new perspective to Senshi's philosophy, his relationship with the dungeon and with food as a whole. The same way, it gives me a new perspective on Lyo's far too obsessive fondness for monsters. The dungeon's ecosystem takes into account the defeat of monsters by adventurers, as without them, the monsters would be able to spill out onto the surface. Due to the mysterious ability to resurrect the dead inside the dungeon, it is theorized that there is a spell of immortality cast onto the dungeon, turning adventurers a part of this well-designed ecosystem. And Laios, being the monster lover that he is, sometimes so much so that it feels like rescuing his sister is only an afterthought, is ecstatic to meet and eat these creatures. And although a bit too much at times, I get the fascination. As for the exception of Laios and Senshi, every other character sees monsters as just that, monsters. Naturally being repulsed at the idea of living amongst them, let alone eat them. Dungeonmeshi is many things. A bombastic action-adventure fantasy story, a masterclass of character diversity, a slap-your-knee-it's-so-funny type of comedy, and a wonderful show to make your mouth water at impossible-to-achieve meals. But besides all of those things, its message of balance and harmony is what stuck with me. With Laios seeing monsters as more than just what they naturally are, I see it the same way as our instinct animals. They're mesmerizing in their own right, regardless of the actual threat they represent. They are an important part of this ecosystem, just as much as all the humanoid races. And so they have equally as much of a right to live in this world. To be quite honest with you, I don't know if I'm reaching with the themes of this video, so to try and prove my point, I'll leave you with this. Cause out of all 97 chapters, still in the middle of the story, the scenes of Laios' dream has been in my mind throughout the making of this video. Not exactly a spoiler warning for the overall story itself, but you know the drill, there's a time skip stamp if you need. For some context, after passing out from a monster attack, Laios finds himself in the dream alongside the creature known as the Winged Lion. The lion wishes to entrust the Golden Country to Laios, making him king. Showing his hesitance to the idea though, the lion shows him that reality in his dream. A world where he rules over humanoid races and monsters equally. Where both parties, at first glance, coexist peacefully.
この野郎
なんこと？
密漁者だ。マンデレク、ユニコーン、宝虫、サキュバス。人にとって価値のある魔物は国のサインサーだが、同時に冒険者も生きつける。板に危害を及ぼさない魔物は死へもできない。
それは、厄介だな。
お前ならどう対処する？
襲われた場合に限り死へを許すとか。いや、そらむずいか。外の人間を締め出すのは良くないよな。
正直ここはまだリゾ居とは言えない。人々は貧しく圧力も多い。元気がさしたか？
でも、僕はずっとこういうことを考えてたのかも。同じ世界の生き物なのにただ殺し合うしかできない。それが妙に悔しくて何か変えられないかと思ってたんだ。たとえ食材としてでも。ここならそれが叶いそうな気がする。魔物と共に暮らせる世界があるのなら、 僕はそれを見てみたい。本当にお前は面白いやつだな。お前のことがすっかり好きになってしまったよ。どうだ、迷いは荒れたか？見てみたい。この世界の続きを。Reading Dungeon Meshi has left me with a new appreciation for what I eat. Even if I'm not a very good cook like Senshi, I think it's important to wish for a more balanced, respectful, peaceful world. I think it matters. And besides the entire fun adventure that was this manga, I think this little message is also just as important. Thank you all so much for watching. I'd like to thank Victoria once again for translating the text from the original manga. I hope I was slightly better than last time during the voiceover. And of course, a special thanks to you all for the continuous support towards this small channel of mine. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. If you did, please subscribe and share it around. I hope you're eating well. I really mean that. I truly hope you take care of yourselves. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.